Okay, go.
Good morning. My name is Ken Roberts. I'm with World City. We're the publisher of Pharr trade numbers. We're going to be the host today working with BridgeConnect. I want to introduce Luis Bizan, who is in charge of the Pharr International Bridge, the 29th biggest airport, seaport, or border crossing in the country. Luis.
You sure can. Thank you. Thank you for making this happen. With COVID and all the guidelines and new ways of doing things, this virtual reality for us this virtual world has become a new reality for us. So we're happy to be connected with you. You're in Miami. We're in Pharr, and I believe our guest speaker for today, Tony Martinez, is somewhere in Edinburgh, if not on travel somewhere with his business. But anyway, I wanted to just give a quick introduction. I'm going to take off my mask real quick since I'm the only one here. Because at the end of the day, BridgeConnect is something that we've been doing with the Pharr International Bridge for a number of years now. I created a platform back about 6-7 years ago, and it was just a small situation where we were bringing in some guest speakers and things of that nature, and it's developed into what it is today. And actually, thanks to COVID, it is what it is now, which is basically a studio setting and what you have here, what I can see in front of me, which is great. And I have to give my hats off to the IT team in Pharr and media for making this happen. But overall, I think that the Pharr International Bridge, our job is to ensure that the public, that our customers, that our commercial public, as I like to call them, are well informed, are up to date on things that might be affecting the status of their trade. We know we have a new trade deal in place now, but like with any trade deal, there's ups and there's downs, and there's different commodities. We continue to be the #1 port of entry for fresh produce grown in Mexico. As a matter of fact, we're crossing 65% of the nation's produce through here, and overall we're doing over $36 billion in trade with Mexico and the rest of the world. And we're so happy to have you as a partner, Ken, because your publication, the trade numbers publication, has really allowed us to look into the future, to see what our markets are, what our options are, and to see overall how we compare to other land ports of entry, and even more than that, seaports and airports. So we're very excited about what the future holds for Pharr. And regardless of the situation, we've been actually growing in the last few months throughout the summer months. Our shipments of fresh produce, and I'm sure that Tony is going to elaborate on this a little bit further, have grown. We've seen more produce, up to 15,000 shiploads per month throughout the pandemic. And that's not stopping. We're approaching peak season, and we'll get into that later. But again, I just want to thank our customers. Thanks for all of you that connect with us. Now it's bi-weekly on these BridgeConnect live sessions. We encourage you to continue to connect with us. Reach out to us with ideas for future BridgeConnects. We're also working on another program. We're kind of drawing it out right now, and we're hoping to bring this to you in the next few months if it's approved. But at the end of the day, we're here for you as always. We thank you. We want to wish you happy holidays. Stay safe out there. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Ken, and Ken will take care of the rest. And I'll be on standby, Ken, as I mentioned, in case I'm needed for any comments or any clarifications. Thank you.
Sure, and I should just mention that the job that Luis and his team and all of you in Pharr do is really exceptional. We do publications and webinars and data for a lot of airports and seaports and border crossings across the country, and you guys really are to be commended. So it's quite impressive. So I'm going to quickly share my screen, and hopefully this will be fairly smooth. So again, this is Pharr trade trends, and the idea here is to look at the impact of COVID, but more specifically, we're going to focus today on the perishable trade. Okay. So today you have me, that's me, and then joining me will be Tony Martinez, the managing member of Primo Trading Services. Many of you know Tony, obviously, and I'll introduce him in just a second. For those of you who don't know me, some quick background. A contributor to Forbes.com. I write 5 columns a month on their website on international trade. This needs to be updated. A member of Federal Reserve's Trade and Transportation Advisory Board. I'm actually just going off this year. I've finished my second 3-year term, so I've been up for 6 years, and it's been a terrific experience. We analyze U.S. Census data at ustradenumbers.com, and we're going to spend quite a bit of time there. after I talk with Tony for a bit about what he sees going on in the market. And we've produced trade numbers products that Luis mentioned there for more than 20 markets around the country over the last essentially 2 decades. We release Trade Matters videos weekly, and I speak on international trade to Fortune 500 companies, national and local trade organizations, and groups like this. This would not be possible, of course, without the Pharr International Bridge supporting us and allowing us to do the work that we think we hope is helpful to all of you in the room today or listening as it is taped. So if at any point you have questions, I would say fire away. I'll take them as they come. We can also do it at the end, whatever's best for you. But if you have a question, feel free to just jump in. So this is a copy of Pharr trade numbers, the 2020 version. For those of you who've seen it in the past, we completely redesigned the publications this year to try to get a lot more information in there, make them more using data visualization techniques. So they're sort of loaded with colorful graphics, central trade data, and we really had a good time with it. And again, it looks at Pharr's 36.68 billion in two-way trade that occurred in 2020. We also did a pocket-sized pamphlet for Pharr. Many of you have seen that. This was a relatively new product, actually originated in Pharr. I should step back and say this. We started out doing our publications on the customs district level. As many of you know, Laredo is the customs district that incorporates Pharr and Del Rio and Brownsville and Eagle Pass and so forth. We got a call one day from Pharr, from somebody in Pharr, and said, hey, what would it take, your former city manager, what would it take to create Pharr trade numbers? We'd never done one on what I'll call the port level, okay, the airport, seaport, or border crossing. And so the good entrepreneur that I am, I said, sure, we could do that. And I got off the phone and said, I have no idea how we can do that. But we figured it out, and now every one of the publications we do is done at the port level, thanks to Pharr. Pharr then said, could you do it in Spanish? And I said, sure, we could do it in Spanish. And got off the phone and said, I have no idea how we're going to do this in Spanish, but we'll get it done. And we did. We've done it in Spanish now in other markets as well, but continue to do so in Pharr. And then, so Pharr comes up with a lot of these ideas. The idea for this pamphlet actually came from someone else. It's a pocket-sized guide. You can't necessarily tell here, but sort of to fit into your jacket pocket or your purse or something like that, or even a backpack. But it came from someone else, and when I approached Luis with the idea, he liked it, and so we've been producing that for you guys as well in Pharr. Those are all available if you don't have a copy at ustradenumbers.com, and I'll be sharing that with you again in a minute. So I'm going to introduce now Tony. Tony and I had a really wonderful conversation a couple of days ago, and I guess it was just yesterday, I guess. And he just overwhelmed me with his knowledge of the perishable business, and it was really a really great conversation. But he's the managing member of Primo Trading Services since 2015. He served on the Pharr National Bridge Board of Advisors since 2016, and is currently the vice chairman, has been since 2019. He's worked for a number of companies, spent most of his time at Farmers Marketing Services, but has also worked at Wonderful Citrus as general sales manager, Coast Citrus as director of sales. Significantly, I think he's an advisory board member for the Rio Grande Valley Food Bank from 2018 to present. And on a day yesterday, we just passed 3,000 people who died from COVID in the United States. And when unemployment numbers went up today, I think we're going to see food banks on the country be very important. And it's really terrific to have someone who knows so much about the perishable trade to be involved with a group like that. And importantly, also to Tony and to all of us, is he's a veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps. So with that, I'm going to see if I can figure out, because I'm not as familiar with this particular, I got to stop the screen share and I got to figure out how you do that. I'm going to get Tony talking, and let me see if it's this X button. I hope it is. Let's see, what does that button do? Leave the meeting. No, I don't want to leave the meeting. Okay, let me see if I can figure out how to get rid of screen share. Oh, me. Here. Options, maybe it's options. I apologize for this. Make presenter include. If someone can send me a text on how you get rid of screen share, I'm not familiar with this particular application. Maybe it's this button, this button. Well, Tony, I'm going to, while we figure this out, I'm going to go ahead and I ask the first question of you, and hopefully I can figure out in time to get you on the screen. But
Sure.
the question is this. When we talked yesterday, you said you can summarize the year 2020 in one word. So why don't you tell us what that word is and then why? And hopefully I can get this off the screen in the meantime.
Sure. What we were discussing from a supply chain standpoint, to sum up the year so far, it's been bottleneck, stop and go. What that means on the supply chain side is in April when when COVID started really taking off, that we felt it here in Texas on the supply side. It was a boom of business because demand was on the uptick on produce perishables. However, once the shutdown started across the country, it caused a huge halt, and the word, the term bottleneck is basically just that, an excess supply of produce at one point or the other. And we were, I'm going to speak in general here. There were many shippers in the Texas region that were stuck, for the lack of a better word, with produce because of lack of movement. Many restaurants were shut down across the country. Many supermarkets were limiting how many customers could go inside stores, and people were just not leaving their house out of fear of contracting the virus. So there was all these variables that took place. Weeks passed, and because people were losing a lot of money. For example, I'm going to use Mother's Day, for example. Mother's Day is probably the biggest day of the year for the restaurant industry. NRA, the National Restaurant Association, targets Mother's Day for all types of national restaurants, local restaurants. And the norm is, let's promote for Mother's Day. Well, this year they did their best, but because of shutdowns and because of states enforcing shelter at home or lockdowns, for lack of a better word, by no means were they able to hit numbers remotely close to what they had done in previous years. So that again caused a bottleneck on the supply side, because we ramp up in anticipation of these events or of these yearly norms, and because of COVID, it's been basically a stop and go pretty much all year.
Terrific. So that's what you've seen so far here. What about, how do you look forward? What are you anticipating for 2021?
I'm going to back up just a bit. Even to close out the year, Ken, I'm seeing a lot of people, a lot of companies in the industry, really taking an extremely conservative approach historically as companies enter the fourth quarter of the year, as companies enter the last quarter of the year. We start to see some layoffs. We start to see some very extremely conservative decisions being made. One of the most common is labor layoffs. We're starting to see that in record numbers. I believe 2 weeks ago, nationwide, I think we were close to 800,000 people filed for unemployment. So I think we're seeing a collection of so many things. But sticking specifically to our industry, I think we're seeing less infrastructure projects, less forecasting for 2021. I've yet to see anybody come out, and I'm talking companies at the multinational level, at the national, at the local level, work on budgets for 2021, because I believe right now it's still a little too early, even though it's December. And by now, I think most have their budgets ready for 2021 or for the following calendar year. I think this year, because of fear of the unknown, everybody's taking a very reluctant approach. On the investment side, as I mentioned, you don't see many people doing capital improvement projects. You don't see, in my case, we are a grower, shipper, importer. So we do grow a lot of our own product. Now, what that means is we have to forecast 6 months ahead of time, pretty much on any row crop, with the exception of citrus, because the trees are already existing. So what that means is, here we are in December. and we've been working the land. I'm going to use carrots as an example. We started working the land in November. Here we are in December. We got the seed ready to go. It's about $500,000 worth of seed. We start planting in January, the first couple hundred acres, and we won't see the first harvest until June of 2021. So we forecast 6 to 8 months out. And what I'm seeing, and this is from my seed vendors, there's a lot more seed available. And what that means is people are not planting like they have historically in previous years. And another thing is financing, Ken. Money, cash flow is going to start to play a really pivotal role. Chase Bank recently announced they're classifying the produce industry as a high-risk industry. So what that means, if companies bank with Chase, they're basically coming to you and saying, hey, you know what, company X, you are in a high-risk industry, and we can't take a chance on you, so we're going to pull your line of credit. So depending on, most companies, fortunately or unfortunately, they work on credit, and they work on extended lines of credits, and that's how they cash flow a lot of their operations. In our case, we cash flow our own growing, so we do our own stuff there. However, that is separate from what we do on a day-to-day on operations. So when you're actually growing, you're basically putting away a couple $100,000 per crop away. You're tucking it away for 8 months, not knowing what's going to happen from here to 8 months. And if you're in a position where you're banking with somebody like Chase, or if there's other banks that follow suit, that's a very bad indicator for those companies.
Yeah. And I think we tend to forget how remarkable it is that when we go to the store, that we find all the fruits and vegetables we want. And we just think it's some kind of magic, but we forget that there's people making very calculated decisions, making very calculated risks behind the scenes and trying to anticipate how much to grow, how much to move, where to move it, when to move it, what price do they have to pay, and
Right.
I know some of the freight rates are starting to show a little bit of movement upward as well, I think.
Right. Yeah, freight rates are, I believe our chairman of our board mentioned freight rates were up about 13 cents nationwide on diesel. And a lot of it is because raw manufacturing is very strong. Automotive electronics is extremely strong. The energy sector, even though prices overall are down, but because of Mexico, it consuming a lot of energy down here, it is up. But yes, to your point, right now, freight rates are going up. So what do you do, right, in a position like ours, to continue the supply chain going, to make sure our cabbage, our carrots, our oranges, everything ends up at the shelves 6 to 8 months from now, even though we don't know? It's a lot of luck. It's a lot of strategic planning. But with something like COVID, in my lifetime, I've been in the industry 24 years. We've never come across anything like this, to where we can't. What is a calculated risk? And there's no such thing right now. Everything is a high risk, So what we do is we take a very conservative approach and say, okay, how many units do we sell a week? How many units do we sell a month? How much of our customer base can we cover? Can we commit to on a conservative base? So what we wouldn't do is, if we pick up a new customer and they say, hey, we want you to grow 50% more of what you normally do on a COVID year, we will not do. So we'll stick to what we've done in the past, and maybe do a 10% growth depending on the commodity and depending on what time of the year it is. But we try and, for example, we planted green beans for Thanksgiving. It's a very big item. It's very popular. One of the fads that COVID has created, Ken, is prepackaged triple washed vegetables, and that's in a bag. So you have your consumer walking into your your HEB, to your Roundy's, to your Publix, grocery stores. I've seen it more so in the Midwest and in the Southeast. Instead of grabbing that raw piece of broccoli, now they'll just walk over and grab the prepackaged broccoli that's florets, and they'll take it, and a lot of it is just safety concerns, you know. So there's so many fads, there's so many trends that are happening now, and you know, we're just trying to adapt to it as best as possible, but at the same time be mindful and be conservative in the sense of what it is that we can realistically do, knowing it's going to be 6 to 8 months before we're able to touch or even collect the money that we've invested in the crop.
And on top of that, grocery, you know, so it's shifted from restaurants to grocery. So they're, you know, and I'll show you a lot of the statistics here in just a second. But one thing that's happened with the grocery is the amount of online purchases at groceries has gone up from 2 billion to 8 billion since August of 2019.
Right.
Enormous growth. Now, a lot of those people are still going to the store and having it brought out to them, but a fair number having it brought to their home. So it remains to be seen how that affects, you know, is there more waste, is there less waste? Are they going to the pre-packaged like you're talking about, the pre-washed, you know, and I think there's so many unknowns. I mean, one thing you said also was that the decision-making process has also changed on the people who are, you know, your customers, right? Right.
And another thing to add to the point you just made, when I was at Wonderful Citrus, when we started seeing this fad back in 2015, some of the northeastern grocery retailers were the ones that kicked off curbside. Slowly, it started making its way down into the South. For your high-end commodities, Ken, like a berry, like a clementine, like a mandarin, something that has a brand behind it. These grocery stores, they target the consumer. It's pretty much the mother in the family. So if they can get the mother into the grocery aisle, and they can get the banana, which is a pretty much an essential. Potatoes and onions are considered essentials, but to pay $6 to $8 for a clementine, mandarin, it's probably not going to happen unless they're in the store, right? So we saw that trend in 2015 that if curbside picks up, and it did, now we've learned that, that overall these niche items, these high dollar commodity items like a berry, like a mandarin, they become now less essential, right? Now, what has history taught us in the past? In 2008, when I worked for L&M, they were the largest potato and onion division in the country at the time, and then the recession happened, right? So what did we see? We saw a record onion market in 2008, 2009, and I believe it was 2009. Now that was for many reasons. However, once a recession hit, Ken, the sales of potatoes and onions were just non-stop. Why? Because history teaches us that when money gets tight, people go for the essentials. What are the essentials? Bread, milk, eggs, potatoes and onions, right? And we saw that happen again when COVID started, and you know, and then the healthier trends happened later when the doctors were telling everybody, hey, eat your vitamin C intake, eat your vegetables. So people started buying fruits and veggies, and you know, we've seen the 2020 has been a high consumption year for vitamin C. Orange sales are up. Sales on Persian limes are up. It's been pretty consistent overall. Now there is some data out there, Ken, that's a little, I don't want to say misleading, but it's not completely accurate, or there's not complete. There's more to the story. One of them, for example, is, and maybe this is a downfall of it, but for example, avocado sales are booming this year. However, on the flip side, we've seen record low pricings, and we've seen a lot of avocado importers that I know myself personally that have taken substantial losses because they were caught in the bottleneck in April. So, you know, for a small company to absorb $500,000 loss in a matter of a month, you know, how many years is it not going to take them to recover? it's still to be, those are the unknown variables, right?
Yeah.
So when when you look at things in that perspective, yes, consumption is up and that's good. However, it's taken a toll on this side because somebody paid the price.
Yeah. Well, Tony, thanks a ton. I don't know if there's any questions, and I'm not even sure how I would know, unfortunately. But what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and go to the data now. Let's see if I can get this right. I'm going to pop up our screen here. And let's see if you should be hopefully seeing, well, we want to go to this page here. So, yeah, so this is what you can see now, I believe, right? So what this shows you is, in a nutshell, what we've gone through this year. This is looking just at Pharr, and this is imports and exports over the last 12 months. And you can see, look at April and look at May. You can see what happened. You can see from March to April, that's where we just shut down, right? The country shut down. And if this is a chart that I could pick up and put on almost any airport, seaport, or border crossing in the country. Some have not rebounded quite as much. Some have rebounded slightly more, but this is almost typical of what you see around the country. So you can see April and May were really tough months, and October is the most recent data available. And as you can see, it's come way back up from where it was way down here, right? So it's been and this, oh, by the way, this is ustradenumbers.com. And if you go to the Pharr International Bridge page at any point during the year, you will see the data that I'm showing you on this page right here. So let me scroll up. Let me scroll up to the top, because Pharr is a sponsor of this page, as you can see at the very top. So here on this first column here, I think I have some kind of a pointer or a pen or something. Let me see if I have a pointer here. I'm not sure what this does here. Yeah, there you go. Well, that's not really a pointer. But anyway, if I'm in the upper left corner now, and you can see comparing October of 2020 to October of 2019, Pharr's trade is down 2.88%. And you may think, well, that's not so good. Let me tell you, that's great this year because U.S. trade is down, I think, about 12% still at this point. Now you're down a little bit more from the September numbers, but there's fluctuations, so that's not so critical. The export side is down 12.22%, but your imports are up 2.77% from a year ago. And that is really something. Now, part of that you will see, let's see, I got to move this out of my way here for a second. Part of that is what you'll see on our website. There's a story that's created every month that sort of tells the story. Let me just show it to you real quickly here. So for the year, Pharr's trade is down 13.12%, okay? So that's probably a little bit off, a little bit worse than the national average, but not much. It's pretty close to being in line. And by the way, on this page, here's Pharr's exports, and it shows the percentage that they account among all the exports, and then here's the imports. And you can see what those imports are. And Tony was talking about avocados. So we're gonna get right to avocados now. So total imports, this is by value. So this will almost make Tony's point for us here. By value, the total imports compared to a year ago are down about 6%. That doesn't talk about the volume. And Tony was telling they're pouring across the border, right?
Right.
But what he said is the price is not as strong. So I think you can see that there. Okay. Right. Of all imports, that's about 6%, right? And among U.S. imports, avocados. This category, by the way, includes dates, figs, and pineapples. But in the case of Pharr, for sure, it's avocados. And in most, avocado is dominant even nationwide, but there are some pineapples and stuff that come from other places. And then we can scroll down here and see, there's no surprise on where those avocados come from. 70% of them come from Mexico, and so far this year, that's 2.33 billion, as you see in the center of the screen there. And if we scroll down a little bit more, we can see where they come in, and Pharr ranks #1 in the nation with 38% of the total, okay? And if you go back, we can click here and go back to 2015 and see Pharr was at 36%. For the month of October, it's 35%, and for the year to date, it's 38%. So pretty consistent. If you combine Port Laredo, you can see that more than 60% of all the avocados and dates, figs, and pineapples, but it's large avocados, obviously, for these two markets, come in through Pharr, okay? So that's,
and I believe the lowest number of ag trucks that were imported I believe it was, and Luis, correct me if I'm wrong, was the month of April, and it was right at 14,000 trucks. That was the lowest month of the year. By October, by September, October, we were already back up to 16, 17,000 ag trucks per month. And just to kind of add to the data that you're providing, but I believe in the month of October, the Pharr bridge set a record on southbound traffic. I believe we crossed about 60,000 trucks southbound. Now that's a collection of all the trucks carrying all cargo, right? Empty trucks. So that could have been a manufacturing truck, a produce truck. It could have been anything, right? That came across. So the numbers do track, but heading into the fall, we will most likely be seeing ag crossings, northbound imports, right up in the 19,000 truck range.
Yes, correct. That is correct, Tony. Month of April was our lowest month, and as I mentioned earlier during the introduction, was the fact that even throughout the summer months, we were seeing upwards of 15, 16,000 truckloads of produce coming through the port of entry, which is unheard of for those months. Usually things slow down in the summer months and then pick up again. That's why we do the start of the produce season in October, because that's when things start picking up and we start getting to those 14, 15, 16,000 shipments per month. But yes, you are correct. We're forecasting that in the months ahead, as we get closer to peak season, we will start seeing those 18 to 19,000 shipments of fresh produce coming through Pharr. That's accurate.
Thank you, Luis. So I'm going to jump on to peppers, asparagus, and squash. Here in Pharr, it's going to be largely peppers, I believe. And so look at that. Total imports are up 14.25% from a year ago. That's a big jump. That's a big jump, And again, all looking at all imports, that's just less than 1%. So this is a big jump. And in rank, there's roughly 1,265 categories of imports and exports at this level that I use. For those of you who know the harmonized tariff code, I'm at the 4-digit level here. So it's gone from 120 last year to 112. So again, you're going to start seeing repeat as I go through some of these.
Mm-hmm. If I could throw you a fun fact there, and this is not so fun for some of our colleagues that are pepper importers and pepper growers, but right now prices are so depressed on hot peppers, jalapeno, poblano, serrano, that they are disking fields instead of investing the money to harvest. Wow. Because there is a bottleneck, and consumption for some reason in the pepper portfolio, the hot pepper portfolio is down. So it's I received a video last night of the markets in Mexico, and I mean you cannot give peppers away right now, unfortunately.
Well, Tony, I will tell you that I am personally not a problem there, because I am eating my fair share of hot peppers. I use hot peppers on almost everything I consume. And so again, 68% come from Mexico. Nogales ranks first, followed by Detroit. And of course, this is going to be the seasonal thing, because I'm going to show you that if you look this is a total year for 2019. So you may just be seeing some of the seasonal thing going on there. You may see Pharr catch up as the season takes over a little bit. But again, Pharr ranks third in the nation for this particular import. If we switch now to strawberries and blueberries, let me just scroll this up. There you go. Strawberries, blueberries, and raspberries. And I think Pharr does a lot of raspberries. Am I correct? I think it's a lot of, there's all of them, I guess, strawberries and raspberries, but I think there's a lot of raspberries. I think big number. But look at this number again. Look at this number increase from a year ago. Enormous increase, right? And again, it's moved up in rank among all U.S. imports. And once again, if we go down here, they're not surprisingly, again, coming from Mexico. And I think this one right now, you guys switched place a little bit, but we still got a couple of months of data here. It's Otay Mesa does a lot. So for those of you who don't know, it's sort of south of San Diego, I guess, on the border, obviously. But Pharr is really, really important there, as is Port Laredo. So, if you put these two together, you're talking 44%. You're talking almost half of all those berries that come in the United States come in a very, how far is Laredo from Pharr? 150 miles? No, 100?
Roughly about a 2-hour drive or so.
Yeah. So a lot. So there, and again, here you can see the seasonal nature. Obviously, of these things. I didn't show that on the others, but this you can slide. This is going back years, but you can see the peaks and valleys that occur with the berries here. And again, they've increased year over year 3.37%. So they're really picking up on a year over year by month figure, which was 28%. Tomatoes, okay, again, 25% increase over last October. Big increase. And it really moved up in ranking from 186 to 144. And again, 84%, a much bigger percentage come through Mexico. And here you see a similar relationship here, but about 42% are through the Texas area there. And let's go back to 2019 and see where it was. So about the same percentage. You were at 22% last year and 21% year to date. And look at that. For the month of October only, Pharr was bringing a lot of tomatoes across the border. Okay. So here's, I think, Tony, did you tell me you deal with some of the citrus? I think you do, right? Or you don't?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So this is a big category. It's oranges, grapefruit, and other citrus. But in the case of Pharr, it's going to be lemons and limes, right, Tony?
Lemons, limes, and oranges as well.
Oh, some oranges. Okay. All right.
Yes.
Well, I just got to tell you, being here from Florida, that there's nothing quite like a Florida orange, but
The Texas guys differ.
So look at that jump there too, 22.79%, and look increase in the rank. So this is, by the way, this is what we're seeing all over the country, because we're doing a webinar like this for Philadelphia next week, and as some of you will know, but some of you will not know, that's a big perishable area as well. And I live here in Miami, big perishable area as well. And in each of these markets, we're seeing big increases, not necessarily this big, but we're seeing increases in perishable while other things are suffering. Other things getting hurt, particularly if you're doing anything with energy related, you're going to see some issues there, right?
On Persian limes, Ken, because Europe is a huge consumer of Persian limes out of Veracruz, Mexico.
Okay.
Right now, because COVID cases have risen and shutdowns have been enforced, bars are closed, restaurants are closed in Europe. Now, exports to Europe from Mexico on Persian limes have stopped. So what does that mean? That product has to be diverted and has to go somewhere. So right now, they're shifting, and it's going to start entering North America. It'll come in. We're going to see an increase in limes before. I believe you're going to see an increase in through the port of Philly, and you're going to see vessels heading right to Canada. So in order to try and save some freight, at this time, December is a very important month for a lime grower, because they pretty much survive on the prices. Typically, the euro is very, very strong, and then you have Christmas holiday, you have New Year's. So Europe is a big consumer of limes for New Year's. So they're going to take a substantial hit, because any product that was at destination in Europe was basically sold at a substantial loss. Plus, you have to keep in mind, it takes 30 days for the vessel to reach destination in Europe once it leaves the port of Veracruz. So in those 30 days, however many containers you put in the water, you're going to lose that times however many vessels are on the way. So what's going to be their best course of action? They're going to take a substantial loss on anything they send to Europe. And then anything that they're picking now or they're harvesting now, they're just going to have to, ship it to the U.S. and Canada and really hope for the best. But with that, prices will remain pretty flat or historically low for a typically active December.
And so here's I mentioned Philadelphia. Here's the gateways for trade in these citrus categories. So Philadelphia's a big player in that, as well as Pharr and then Long Beach. But again, about a quarter. I don't see what happened. So it looks like there's been sort of a decline so far this year. But let's look at current month and then year to date. So I don't know, Tony, do you expect anything that's going to change in the next couple of months, or is there something? Maybe Philadelphia's picking up. Let's see if Philadelphia's way up, about 30%. And I don't know enough about Philadelphia's in this particular import to know what are they lemons.
Philly takes in a lot of South American citrus and Spain and sometimes South Africa. So it really depends. I know South America did have a pretty big crop this year, but again, now with Mexico needing to divert some of that Euro fruit, expect some of that to start going straight to the ports of Philly.
When they probably take Brazilian orange up into Philly, then is that right?
I'm not sure about oranges, but I don't think Brazilian oranges go in.
Okay, so it's lemon and lime and stuff like that. Same thing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the category of miscellaneous frozen vegetables, and it is literally that. It's a wide variety. It's all lumped together. Slight increase there as well, and a nice 2.71% increase, and then an increase in the ranking as well. Here you don't see quite the dominance you see with some of the others because of the frozen nature, but still almost half. And let's see what was going on last year. About the same. And a little bit of a dip in October, but about close to half of the total. And here you see Pharr is number 3 at 8.2% this year, and a little bit up. So a little bit up this year to date, and about the same for the month of October. And again, you can see here you can see that it's not particularly seasonal, as you would expect, right? Because it's frozen. And what else we got? We got some cabbage. I know Tony deals with cabbage, right?
Yes, sir.
Cabbage, cauliflower, kale, and so forth. Again, 9.69. So the trend is very clear. You're seeing just a real surge in all these fruits and vegetables. So 85% from Mexico, and there's Pharr at a third of the nation's total this year to date. About the same last year, and about the same in the month of October. And then this is green beans. And again, 20%. These are big jumps. These are not small. Some of these are not small jumps. In just comparing 1 month to the previous year, that's pretty sizable. It's not a big import, as you can see. It's ranked 625, but means we're just not needing enough green beans, I guess. But here you see Guatemala jumps into the picture. I don't know if that's so. A lot of them are coming from Guatemala as well. And there you see Port Miami. Here's Pharr over here at 8.2%. So the Guatemalan string beans are going to come in from into Port Miami, and it's actually up with Pharr from 6.6 to 8.2%, and then 12% in the month of October. So a good month for that. And one last one we'll look at is carrots, turnips, and other edible root vegetables. Slight increase, 4.4%, and a slight bump in the rank. I was personally surprised. I was telling Tony that carrots were so low because I eat a great deal of carrots, but about half again from Mexico and another 38% from Canada. But what he informed me is that carrots is one of those vegetables that we grow a lot in Canada in particular, but also Michigan, I believe you said.
California as well.
Yeah, so there's a lot of growth in this country, that sort of keeps it from ranking higher. But there you see Pharr's ranked as number 1. Place a New York port that is on the border with Canada so far this year. And let's see for the month of. Well, there's a lot of movement in this one. This one must have some changes, because look at that. That's a lot of change that you see there. But for the year, Pharr ranks number 1 in this category. And it looks like my timing's pretty good because we're right on the noon hour. And now I got to once again try to figure out how to get my off screen share. I think I did that right that time, didn't I? I'm off screen share, am I? Can you guys, what do you see now? Do you see the screen share or something else?
We just see you.
Good. Okay, great. So I figured that out. So, Luis, that's sort of what I've got. I don't know if there's any questions anybody has for Tony or for me. We'd be happy to try to answer, but it is on the, it is 11 o'clock now. I started saying noon, but I'm in Miami time where it is almost noon, but it's 11 o'clock your time. So let's see what we got here. Okay, I'm just told there's no questions there. So, Luis, I'd be happy to turn it back over to you if you'd like, if you're ready, but I want to thank you for the opportunity. And I think we have to thank Tony for giving some terrific insights. Really knows the business cold, and no pun intended, I guess there. But it really knows the business very well, and a lot of great insights there.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tony, very much. That was a great presentation. You know, and Tony and I know this because we talk about this. We've talked about this like when we've gone out on trips and we've traveled together to promote the bridge, and we could be here all day talking about produce because there's so much of it and there's so much to talk about. But at the end of the day, I think it was a great presentation. I don't see any questions on there either. But I think more importantly is, and I think just the fact that we want to share this information, that we want to ensure again that despite of what we're hearing out there, there might be additional delays. You know, there's so many variables that go into some of these delays. I know throughout the summer months, some of the tomato shipments, things of that nature, and we actually had a BridgeConnect to discuss the tomato shipments and things like that. But despite of all of that, despite of COVID, you know, our numbers are still up, meaning we're still having this product cross through here because it is a necessity. There is a need for it. There's a demand for it in the United States, and we must continue to push for that. And I know Tony talked about the investments, and there have been many investments. It's kind of slowed down due to the economy and the way things are right now. But if you get to look, if you look across the bridge, adjacent to the bridge in the Pharr Produce District, that's a strictly cold warehousing district for the city of Pharr. And, you know, we started with 32 available lots over a 92-acre tract. And here we are, you know, a couple of years later, and we're almost to capacity there. Yeah, some of the construction has stopped for a little bit, but that's understandable due to the current economic conditions. But at the end of the day, things will continue. And people want to be close to the bridge that they cross through. So we're very excited to have these companies here that had been crossing through Pharr for many years and decided just to put in the investment, you know, and work closer with us. So again, you know, I don't know if Tony wants to add anything further, but I do thank you, Ken. I do thank you, Tony, for your time this morning. It was a great presentation, and we look forward to having to continue to work with you again.
No, sure. Just thank you for your time. Thank you for having me. And as vice chair of the Pharr International Bridge, thank you, Ken, for working with us. And it's truly makes our job so much easier to have you on our side, because it's a fact check. You know, if you are a name that people trust, and when people hear Ken Roberts and they know the numbers are there, then that means it's valid, and it instills confidence in the people that we are trying to service. You know, what's very you know, the competitive advantage I've always said that this bridge has is we have a very involved staff. That we have this department. We have to remember that it's ran by a municipality, but it's ran as efficient as a business, right? And our board is comprised of industry leaders that are very much involved in their own, maybe specialized in their own sector, but collectively, we work great as a team to service the major industries and the customers that we serve. So anything that we can do, please let us know. And again, as vice chair, thank you to everybody who's tuning in, and thank you to our amazing staff. And again, thank you, Ken, for having us.
Hey, Luis, do you mind if I pop up a quick screen so if people want to reach out and contact me for any reason?
Please do.
Let me just pop that up. I meant to do that and I just forgot. So I'm going to
Thank you.
I'll pop that up real quickly. And let's see how I get to that. Well, you can see it now, but I want to play from current slide. There you go. So there you go. So here's all our contact information. You can reach me at kroberts@ustradenumbers.com. ustradenumbers.com is where all this data is. And again, on the Pharr page, the Pharr International Bridge page, you'll see the page that was just for Pharr there. So that should do it there. Okay. So again, thank you, Luis.
Thank you.